We'll get right to it, and we'll start with Mark Brennan, and then New Bias will warn you'll be next.
Hey, James, thanks for your time today.
You too, Mark.
Hey, I wonder if you could tell us how you went about getting Dowell Loggins on board. Did the Nashville connections from back in the day play any part, and how much of an asset has he been given all of his experience at NFL level? Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, I think obviously, when you're able to look at some people that are out of work and you may be able to bring them on board in a analyst or consultant role or, some type of role like that. We're always looking to try to help. I think you guys remember, a few years ago, some of the people that we've had come through the building, Hazlitt and so on and so forth. So yeah, Dowell, we got to know very well when he was when he was with Munchak in, with the Titans as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, and was in our office all the time, was at spring practice all the time. You're talking about 17 years of NFL experience. You're talking about 10 years of coordinator experience in the NFL. And, it's awesome. So, not only is he here, but his family is here. They've bought a house here in State College, and, it's great. So it's another sounding board for Coach Yursich and Coach Pry and all of us. So it's been great having him here. It's got great perspective.
New Bias Wilborn, and then Audrey Snyder.
Hey, Coach, thanks for doing this always. What have you, thank you, man. What have you seen with Rashid on the offensive line and really those rotations period with those guys continuing to grow under Troutman?
Yeah, so I literally I was doing my my old man walk before practice, my workout, and I saw Rashid coming out in the field, and I just stopped him. I just said, I'm just super proud of him, in really every area, how far he's grown and matured, and his approach right now has just been fantastic. He's practicing really hard. Winter workouts, he was great. His leadership with the younger players, he seems more appreciative of Penn State than ever, and I think that's a really important characteristic for all of us, to be appreciative of where we are and what we have. And I think he's just in a really good place. I know him and Troutwine have a really good relationship. Those guys are at Troutwine's house all the time. They go fishing. And he's just in a really good place. He's practicing hard. He's working hard. And we got a good mix of experienced guys on the offensive line and some young talented guys. So I've been very pleased with Rashid, and I think he's got a chance to have a special year.
Audrey Snyder, and then Elton Hayes.
Hey, James. Wanted to ask about your Sam linebacker spot, and particularly Curtis Jacobs. What strides has he made? And if the season started tomorrow, would you feel comfortable with him starting at Sam, or who do you think would kind of be your best fit for now?
Yeah, I think, it's been a pretty good progression where, some of our guys can start out there at the Sam linebacker spot to the field. And then as they grow and put some size on and gain some experience, then over time, move into that will linebacker, more in the box, and then sometimes even transition to the mic. So, Curtis was able to gain some experience last year, and right now he's playing like a confident guy that gained some valuable experience last year. And now obviously that gives us the ability to put Brandon Smith, into the boundary, which also creates some flexibility, because now Brandon can do a lot of things. And we're going to try to start training Curtis, the same way. So create some flexibility. We've been really pleased with his athleticism in space, and he seems to continue to get more confident out there on the field. So I've been very, very pleased with him. And if we were playing, this Saturday, those two guys would be starting at either outside backer spot based on today.
Elton Hayes, then Tyler Donahue.
Hey, Coach. Hope you're doing well this evening.
You as well.
Hey, Coach, yesterday we spoke with Brandon Smith and Keaton Ellis, and both of them were very complimentary towards Kobe and Kalen King. Just wanted to get your evaluation on the King spring to this point.
Yeah, they're just so mature. Their approach has been so mature in terms of how to prepare physically and mentally, how to compete. It's been really impressive. I mean, I'll as you guys know, I'm still, separated from the family. So I spend more time in the office than ever. And I'll come in here on a Saturday or I'll come in here on a Sunday, and they come in and they're watching film or on the jugs machine or whatever they're doing. Just a very mature approach. And they're really approaching it the right way that I think is going to allow them to compete at a very high level this summer for playing time on defense, on special teams, and probably both. We knew both were good, but both have probably come in, better than we anticipated, especially from an approach and a maturity standpoint.
Tyler Donahue and then Ben Jones.
Hi, James. Hope you're well.
You as well, Tyler.
I wanted to go back to Brandon Smith.
Congratulations, Tyler.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Now, don't have the baby on here and make me make corrections of how you hold and support the baby.
I can't make any promises. I'll do my best.
Okay. All right.
Going back to Brandon Smith, who we did have this week, what did you see from game 1 through game 9 as far as his progression as a first-year starter, and how is that translated to this spring?
Yeah, I think, obviously Brandon's always had a tremendous amount of ability, guy with tremendous length and speed. And, obviously when he gets there, and he's got a nasty demeanor to him and is a physical player. We've seen some big hits already out of him in his short career. Obviously started him to the field and then started to rotate him into the boundary as well. And I think, again, he's very confident, went from, kind of like Curtis, kind of rotating in and getting a feel for it, to then starting, out to the field, and then started to kind of rotate into the boundary. And now I think has got a really good understanding of not just those positions, but really our defense as a whole, and is really working into being a leader for us right now. He's in our offices all the time. It's funny. His family's got a relationship with Coach Poindexter as well. They go way back. So I got a bunch of messages from his family about what a great hire that was. But he's exactly what you want in terms of a guy that came in that was a highly recruited guy, highly regarded, contributed for us as a freshman, and each semester and each year he continues to take the next step and grow. I think those two guys have a chance to really make our linebacker from a historical perspective, make all those former linebackers and our fans proud, the way they're going about it. And then obviously, Ellis and Jesse, feel really good.
Ben Jones and Joe Giuliano.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Ben?
No complaints. Micah Shrewsbury said he wanted his team to have an underdog mentality, which fits that program well. I'm sort of curious how you would define the mentality you want your program to have right now, given the sort of range of experiences of the last few seasons. And is there a comparable offseason to this one from a messaging standpoint?
Yeah, I think, obviously last year is something that we hadn't experienced, here. Not only from a COVID perspective, but also from a production perspective. There's no doubt about it. I think we always have kind of had that chip on our shoulder. That's kind of my mentality. That's kind of my approach. Until you're, consistently, where you want to be in the conference, within the Big Ten and nationally, then I feel like you always feel like that. There's some programs that I think we laugh about every year that take on that approach, that underdog, that chip on the shoulder, that disrespected program, that maybe doesn't fit. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but for us, I want to make sure that our approach and demeanor really shouldn't change a whole lot. If you're doing it right, your approach when you're winning shouldn't change a whole lot. There's some lessons that can be learned, but I'm talking about your core beliefs and your core values. And when you take one in the chin, if your process is correct, then it should stay. And over 10 years, I think we've proven that our process is correct. There's things that we got to get better. There's things we got to refine. There's no doubt about it. But coming off last year, we've learned a lot.
Joe Giuliano and then Brandon Marcello.
Good evening, James.
Hey, Joe.
Last year, with no spring and irregularity of summer, did that affect the chemistry and camaraderie you were hoping to build for the season? And how has that improved this year now that things are more or less back to normal, developing that chemistry and camaraderie?
Yeah, I'm always careful, when I get questions like this, because I think it's a really fair question and it's a good question. But I also don't want to ever sound like, when you ask me this question, that we're making excuses. But for me to sit here and say that not having spring ball and having interrupted camp, did not affect chemistry and other things, that I wouldn't be being honest. It did, so obviously being able to get back to how we normally operate, learn lessons from last year, that no matter what happens, you got to find a way to adapt and be flexible and get it done. But getting back as much as we possibly can to our normal routine of how we do things. But again, taking the lessons of the flexibility that you have to have when change does come, right? It's the one thing that we can guarantee we're going to have the rest of our life is change. So kind of a combination of those two things, Joe, is trying to create as much chemistry as we possibly can in a way that we've always done it over the last 10 years. But then on top of that, take some of the lessons from last year.
Brandon Marcello, and then our last question will go to Dave Melandra.
Hey, Coach. I've been talking to a lot of your colleagues in the
Brandon.
industry about. I've been talking to a lot of your colleagues in the industry about the COVID-19 vaccine and how it's proliferating through our society. A lot of people are getting it. And now we're starting to see some universities, I know Rutgers, for example, they're going to require on-campus students to have the vaccine when they get there. But as far as you with the football program, do you believe that there should be a mandate of some sort when it comes to the vaccine, or do you think it's just about educating players? And also, I guess, kind of, how are you handling it heading into this summer and then obviously in preseason camp?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is I don't think you can ever mandate, right? I think we've learned that in our country. You're going to have a difficult time doing that. But what I think you can do is educate. When you talk about our football team and our campus and our community and statewide and nationally, you can educate on why it makes sense. And that's the approach that we've been taking, with our team. And then I also think we could get to the point where we'd say, hey, look at Beaver Stadium and show flashes of Beaver Stadium. And hey, if we want to get back to this as soon as we possibly can, this is a step that we could take that would help. That would help us. And that's not only, in Beaver Stadium, that's in Philadelphia, and that's in Pittsburgh, and, Heinz Field, and all these different places. If we want to get back to somewhat of a normal routine in being able to celebrate and enjoy our professional sports or college athletics, this could help. What a great deal that would be is if we put a video out with me talking about, hey, if we want to fill up Beaver Stadium, this could help. And Coach Tomlin and Coach Narduzzi doing it in Pittsburgh, and the same thing in Philadelphia. I almost said the Veteran Stadium, Joe. I almost dated myself there. But I do think that's something that could help us. So for us, we're just trying to educate. We educate as much as we can and try to encourage. Me personally, I'll get any vaccine they give me. I'll take them all. I'll take the Moderna. I'll take the Johnson & Johnson. I'll take them all. If they'll help us getting back to normal, if they'll help me getting back with my family.
Last question to Dave Melandra Jr.
Hey, Coach, got a couple one's for you. Which
Dave.
players so far has stood out during the spring practice so far, and your thoughts about potentially having the fans back in the stadium in the fall?
Yeah, so that question, I think I've answered the last couple of weeks, but I'm happy to go through it again. It's hard for me to kind of single out individuals because there's so many guys that are taking the next step and developing. And I listed out a bunch of guys, I think last week on this call. But for me, a lot of times it's the guys that I didn't know as much about that stand out just because there's an expectation with Rashid. There's an expectation with Brisker. It's an expectation with Ellis and so on and so forth. You know, but some of the guys like Arnold, Ebikidi, there's Johnny Dixon, Congo. There's a bunch of these guys that I probably didn't know as much about. You kind of go through the recruiting process and you go through the transfer process and things like that. Some of the true freshmen that came in at mid-semester, we just got done talking about Kalen and Kobe. I wasn't sure what to expect from those guys as guys that should be going to their prom right now, and Landon and so on and so forth. So they're the guys that probably jump out to you most, the guys that came in at mid-semester, whether that's through the transfer or whether that's from high school. And the other guys, it's you kind of had a pretty high level of expectation that they were going to take the next step.
Thank you very much, Coach. Appreciate it.